Well, g'day, Max there again. Welcome back to the shop. So this will be part one in the series of the repairs that we have to do on our JFMT lathe. So today we're going to work down the opposite end and we're going to make a start on the 2-speed tailstock, as there is some minor issues with the tailstock. So we'll head down there and make a start. So I think a couple of videos back I gave you guys a bit of an overview of the JFMT lathe. So it is in very good condition. Well, the ways are in excellent condition. So yeah, today we're going to start on the 2-speed tailstock. Then we will move on and remove the carriage and apron. Of course the feed shafts and lead screws have to come out for that. We'll pull the top off the headstock and have a look inside, and we'll have a look in the end cover and do any necessary repairs that we have to do in there. I think the brake will need adjusting up as well, and then it's just a good clean down, and this one should be done. So it shouldn't take long to knock off this, hopefully 3 or 4 episodes, and we'll be done with this one. Now I was going to pull the table off the horizontal boring mill, which is over there in the background today, but the lighting's not the best over there as of yet because I still haven't got lights up yet, so that'll be some time off. So let's get this lathe out the way, and then we've got the milling machine over there to sort out next. So okay, let's get this clamping plate out of the way first. Okay, well that has some spherical face on the nut and the washer, so it pulls up nice and square. That's a good thing. Okay, it's a decent solid clamp plate. find out what retains these pull studs. So I suspect it'll be these two bolts here, possibly. Let me get a torch and we'll have a bit of a bow peek up inside. There's supposed to be a dog point set screw locks that end, but maybe it's missing. What I think we'll do is we'll roll it back up upright and sit it on a couple of blocks and we'll strip out the two-speed mechanism. Oh, it's sitting on a bolt on either end. I think I'll go and get two smaller blocks. I'll be back. Okay, that's a bit more solid. So looking at this, pop this handle off, see what we're dealing with, because the mounting cap screws for this casing here are behind the hand wheel. Hopefully then just go and get a plastic mallet and we'll give this a tap. We'll just use my dead blow mallet. Okay. Now it looks like this plate's got to come off. I'll leave that as a feather key in there. I'll leave it in there for now. I was just checking underneath to make sure there wasn't a drain plug. So I suspect there's going to be a bit of oil inside this casing maybe. There's oil. Oil is on top, so okay, got some movement. Okay, there's just a plain bearing, a bush inside this housing. And our drive gear just has a dog clutch on it. What else we got in there? Okay, we've got a couple of gears inside. At least now we have access to our socket head cap screws to pull this end housing off. I just had a visitor just before. Bruce Witham dropped in. He was out and about in the local area today. And my phone's going ding, someone's trying to message me. Okay. I'm not actually quite sure what retains all this. We don't have a parts breakdown or anything. Oh yeah, she's moving now. It's a neat fit. Let me get something, oh yeah, try a bit of timber. Might slip this handle back on, and we might have to run the quill. May have to run the quill out before this will come out all of the way, because I think that might have stopped moving this. Yeah, it's come so far and stopped moving. Okay. Okay, I'll just put the handle back on, see if I can shoot that quill forward a bit more, see if that makes any difference. Alright, let's slip our drive gear back in, see if we can make sense of what's going on here. see what it is. There's another feather key inside. So we have to pull, there's a side plate here. And yeah, I'd say that that feather key is stopping us from removing this housing. I'll swing in for a close-up in case you guys ever come across this. So on top of that shaft is a feather key, and I'd say that's got to come out. I'd say that shaft there is the end of the threaded shaft which operates the quill. So if we get that keyway out, we'll be able to extract the housing. Let's get this cover out of the way. Just 4 Phillips head machine screws. Oh, I see there's a lock nut and a retainer in behind this gear. So this gear will come out once we get this gear out. So we've got to pull the shaft out to get this other gear cluster out. So this top pair of gears here has to come out to let this one come back far enough to clear. And then there's this lock nut on the end of the shaft. So on the end of the housing there's a threaded hole on the end of the shaft, so we can make use of that to pull the axle shaft out of that little cluster gear there. Okay, so I've just got a little 8mm bolt. Screw that in the end of that shaft. Oops. And we can hopefully use a shifter as a puller. And out it comes. And there was a spacer on the end. That went that way. Remember the order. And the spacer went that way. Okay. So this gear here should pop off. Okay, now we're going to interfere because we've run out of travel on our selector there. It actually looks to me like this selector goes in first. So we're going to have to undo this other lock nut. Okay, let me go and get something to tap back the lock washer, and then we can slacken off that lock nut and move this back a bit further. Now, plan B, that's going to be a bit of a mission. Let's unscrew the whole threaded quill shaft out. Oh, got it. So this little selector fork, and our gear comes out. With a bit of persuasion. Okay, so here's the gear. It mates onto there when it's engaged. Okay. Now we can get access to our lock tab, or our lock washer. Like so. Undo the nut. Nut comes off. Lock washer, thrust bearing. Thrust race. The rest of the housing. Okay, so the other half of that thrust race is still inside, and there's the keyway, and of course the one on the opposite side, which is this one. Okay, we'll leave that be for now. Put those out of harm's way over there. Okay. Now I should be able to, I think I had a bit of corrosion up inside this quill by the look of it, and that's why it was feeling so weird when I was turning it. Let's wind this screw in a bit, and we'll give this a bit of a tap on the back. We should shoot the quill forward. That quill's quite solid. Okay, I don't want to hit that anymore. I'd rather put a bridging plate across the end or something like that. That should come out very free, but it's not. So there's our screw. And it doesn't appear to be any wear on that whatsoever. The threads down the very base here where it never gets used are just as sharp as the ones up the very end. So okay, so we've got an issue where our quill is partially seized. So I don't know if you can see what I see. We'll have a look. So you can see she's all pretty gunky inside there. So there must be like a dog point screw which limits the quill travel. So let me investigate that and then we'll bring you back. Okay, looking from the other side, quite often can be a screw of some description, like a dog point screw coming up underneath the front here, and there's a keyway under the tailstock quill. And what that screw does, it limits the forward travel of the quill. Feels like it's rounded off, or doesn't feel good, that one. We might have to drill this one out. Yeah. Okay, I'll bring it down and show you what we're looking at. Okay, there's the little grub screw we're trying to get out, that one down the bottom. And that's holding in a little lock pin. You can just see it up there, which goes into that keyway. Okay, looking back from the other side, this quill is really tight in there. I give it a couple of taps with a hammer and a block of wood, but it wasn't moving in a hurry. So there's 4 bolts inside which hold the brass nut in. I'll remove those bolts. We'll get that brass nut or the bronze nut out of there, and I'll set up a puller rod, I think, and then we'll pull it out. I don't want to go belting on this quill and do any damage, as it is quite tight in there. And that was the problem that's been all along. That's why it was very tight and felt really strange to turn. It wasn't free. So they look like we need a 10mm socket. The other 10mm socket. That'll do it. That's good. So far we haven't found anything that's really a drama. All we have to do is give the handles and that a bit of attention. So what I suspect's probably happened here is it's probably been a lot of possibly coolant entry going up through the end of the spindle. Okay, we should be able to withdraw our nut and put our shaft back in. Yep, out it comes. That's really good. There's no play in that whatever. That's it. Just shows this lathe has not had a great deal of use. We'll pop those and the bolts over the back. Okay, now I've got a decent sized hole we can look through. So let me get a puller rod set up. Right, well there's a restrictor in the middle of the quill. It's the drive for the tang on a Morse taper tool. So we can only fit a bit of 12mm. Well, 12mm is the biggest bit of threaded rod that I have here, and that will fit through. So now I've looked inside, it's looking like that keyway runs the full length of the quill, so it's not a quill limiter as on some lathes. It's also an anti-rotation feature too, as it stops your quill rotating around, either from the tool you're using or actions through the screw thread to make the quill go in and out. So that screw does two jobs. One job on this lathe, and some lathes, like my other lathe at home, does it's a quill stop. So I like to pull the quill that way. So I'm just going to use a deep reach socket, stick it down up against the rear of the quill. We've got our bit of 12mm threaded rod, a couple of washers. A little poke through. Okay, so what I need now is a bridge arrangement at the front. A couple of washers. Now let me get a couple of spaces for in here, and then we can move the quill forward, hopefully out of its stuck position. Right, I have 2 bits of wood. Now if we do up the nut at the back here, everything looks in line. When we tighten up these nuts, it'll bring the quill forward. Get that out of the way. Okay. That's come forward about 1 inch. So I'll go and get another couple of longer packers and pull it out some more. Okay. I may need 3 arms for this. Right. Starting to get a bit tricky to get the spanner to stay on the nut as we're slowly disappearing up inside the hole. But it's coming out good now. Okay, we're at the end of our travel again. We should be able to, may even go up a bump the end of the rod. Feels like we've got it. Yep. There we have it. Quick inspection showing just a bit of water staining, no untoward marks on it, which is good. So she'll get the ATF and acetone treatment, this one. Have a look in the bore. Yeah, there's been a bit of water in there, but we will give that a clean out with a cylinder hone. I think just a slow speed, bit of kerosene. So the next thing to do is to separate the 2 halves of our tailstock housing. So looking inside our tailstock bore, it's a rust ring around there. We'll clean that out with a cylinder hone. Okay, our last operation is to split the top from the bottom. So we'll get rid of these way wipers first. They're just a felt wiper in like an aluminium housing. We're going to make new ones, so okay. So remember earlier there were the two bolts sticking up from either end. I'm not exactly sure what they do, because once these adjusting set screws have been slackened off, there should be nothing holding these two from separating. So I'm just going to tip it up on end. Quite heavy, this thing. Oh. Now we'll take these two bolts out, because I'm not, it may be, it's a keeper to hold the two together. Okay. If that's the case, they should only barely be nipped. Okay, there's a big slot there. So when you make the tailstock adjustments, this bolt can move. Yeah, so these are the adjusting bolts for to offset the tailstock. 1,